All right, let's dive right in. Welcome, everyone, to today's Explainer. We've got a seriously fascinating project to unpack today called UNIOS. Now, if you're someone who spends hours glued to a screen trying to get work done, studying, or writing code, you are absolutely going to want to pay attention to this one. Today, we're exploring what the developers are calling a unified AI workspace. It's essentially a system designed to completely rethink how we interact with all of our digital tools. But before we get into the heavy tech, I want you to honestly think about your own workflow for a second. How many different apps do you actually switch between every single day, just to get one simple task done? Seriously, think about it. You've got 50 browser tabs open, your messaging apps are pinging, you've got a code editor on one screen, maybe a note-taking app on the other. It's totally exhausting, right? That digital fatigue, that constant tab overload, is a universal pain point for all of us. It completely fractures our focus and slows everything down. And that exact frustration is the seed that grew into the project we're breaking down today. So here is our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll look at the app switching problem. Second, we'll officially meet UNOS. Third, we'll explore the 4 tools, 1 dashboard concept. Fourth, we'll talk about building the MVP. And finally, we'll look ahead at the future AI workspace. Let's start right off the bat with Section 1, the app switching problem. The developers behind this project noticed a massive inefficiency in our daily routines. We all know the old way of doing things. Let's say you're a student. You're constantly bouncing between a YouTube lecture, a separate note-taking app, and maybe a couple of different AI tools just to study a single topic. And developers? They have it just as bad, juggling heavy documentation, code editors, and completely separate debugging tools. The mental cost of context switching is just brutal. The UNIOS way, however, was born from a really ambitious what-if question. What if you could do all of that from one unified place, driven entirely by AI? Which brings us nicely to Section 2, Meet UNIOS. The core mantra of this platform perfectly captures what they're trying to do. They call it one conversation to plan, study, code, and learn. I absolutely love this because it signals a massive paradigm shift. They don't just want to build another tool. They want to move us away from that chaotic multi-window multitasking we're all so used to and push us toward a streamlined conversation-first experience. Instead of endlessly clicking through menus and dragging windows around, you literally just talk to the system. So what is it exactly? Well, UNIOS, which stands for the Universal AI Operating System, is fundamentally an AI-powered web application. But its real superpower is that it combines 4 completely distinct, highly useful productivity tools into a single, seamless dashboard. Think of it as a centralized hub for your digital life that just strips away all the clutter and boundaries of traditional desktop applications. Let's look closer at how that actually works in Section 3, 4 tools, 1 dashboard. This central dashboard replaces a bunch of standalone apps using 4 core modules. First up, you've got ChatBrain. This is basically your creative partner for planning, writing, and brainstorming ideas. Next is StudyBuddy, which is just incredible for students. It can automatically turn your learning materials into notes, quizzes, and flashcards. Then, for the developers out there, there's the Codex Debugger, which helps fix and actually explain code errors. And wrapping it up is the ELI5 tutor, as in Explain Like I'm 5, which breaks down really complex topics into simple, generated lesson pages. And behind the scenes, the way you actually interact with all this is incredibly frictionless. Step 1, you literally just start a conversation. Step 2, the AI interface is smart enough to automatically route your request to the correct module out of those 4 we just talked about. And Step 3, you just sit back and let the AI handle the task. No clicking around, no searching for the right app, it just works. Let's look under the hood for a minute in Section 4, building the MVP. The tech stack they put together for this is super modern and robust. For the front end, they used React and Tailwind CSS to get that really clean, responsive interface. The backend is powered by Node.js and Express, but the actual brains of the operation, those are OpenAI's GPT models along with Codex, which, fun fact, they actually used like a copilot to speed up their own coding process. And naturally, they used GitHub for version control and Vercel to deploy the whole thing to the web. Now, building this wasn't exactly a walk in the park. Remember, this was built during a hackathon, so fueled by probably way too much caffeine and a ticking clock, they faced some real hurdles. Managing the scope of a project this ambitious under a strict timeline is incredibly tough. They also had to figure out how to design prompts that would consistently give reliable AI results, figure out how to smoothly integrate all 4 modules into one single interface, and somehow balance all that heavy functionality with a clean user experience. So, how did they actually pull it off before time ran out? Brutal prioritization. Their solution to all those challenges was to strictly limit their scope. They focused entirely on building a polished, minimum viable product with exactly one working flow for each feature. They didn't try to boil the ocean. They just made absolutely sure that the single most important path through each of those four tools worked flawlessly. Coming out the other side of that hackathon, the team walked away with some massive learnings. They got some deep, hands-on experience building AI-powered web apps from scratch and integrating OpenAI models directly into their architecture. They saw firsthand how utilizing tools like Codex can seriously accelerate development speed. They learned a ton about high-pressure teamwork and time management. But honestly, the most crucial takeaway for the future of UNIOS was learning how to craft an experience built entirely around a conversation-first user interface. Which leads us perfectly into our final section, Section 5, the Future AI Workspace. That MVP they built, that is just the starting line. The roadmap they have planned scales this up into something really massive. Right now, we are at Phase 1, the 4-module MVP. But looking ahead, Phase 2 is going to introduce long-term memory across conversations, plus voice support. Phase 3 is where it gets crazy useful, bringing in direct integrations with things you already use, like Gmail, GitHub, and Notion. And then Phase 4 scales all the way up to multi-agent AI capabilities and custom developer plugins. It goes from a tool to a whole ecosystem. This entire roadmap is driven by one very clear vision. The team fundamentally believes that modern software shouldn't just be a messy collection of disjointed, complicated apps. They believe software should be simple, it should be highly intelligent, and it should be accessible to everyone, all functioning from a single, unified, AI-powered workspace. They are literally trying to tear down the walls between our applications. And that perfectly tees up their final tagline: one conversation, unlimited possibilities. It really leaves a mark, doesn't it? Think about it. If the system can instantly and perfectly route your intent to the right tool seamlessly, the barrier between what you want to achieve and how you actually get it done just vanishes. As we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative question to chew on. With this massive shift toward unified, AI-driven workspaces, are we actually witnessing the beginning of the end for traditional standalone software apps? 5 years from now, will you even have separate applications on your desktop? Or will you just have one continuous conversation with your operating system? It's wild to think about how much your daily workflow might change. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive today, and as always, keep questioning how you interact with your tech.